There's a particular kind of quiet that happens in retirement planning conversations, and it's not the good kind. It's the quiet of someone nodding along at a dinner party while their brother-in-law explains his options trading strategy, secretly wondering if they're supposed to be doing something more complicated than what they're actually doing. Here's what I want to tell that person, and maybe that person is you. You're probably not behind. You're probably just listening to the wrong people. And after years of digging into how regular people actually achieve long-term financial stability, not the influencers, not the hedge fund guys, just normal people who sleep fine at night, I've noticed something that should be reassuring. The ones who make it look easy aren't doing more, they're doing less, on purpose. Today I want to walk you through 3 minimalist money rules. Not hacks, not tricks, rules. The kind of thing you set once and barely think about again, and yet they are doing more heavy lifting for your financial stability than almost anything else you could add to your plan. Stick with me, because Rule 3 is the one most people get completely backwards, and it might change how you think about your entire setup. Let's start with Rule 1, and it sounds almost insultingly simple. Automate everything that matters. Not try to save more. Not be disciplined about contributions. Automate it so the decision is made once, and then it's out of your hands forever. Here's why this matters so much more than people give it credit for. The single biggest threat to long-term financial stability isn't a bad investment. It's inconsistency. It's the month where the car breaks down, and you tell yourself you'll just skip this month's contribution, and then skip it again when the credit card bill is higher than expected. And suddenly, a year has evaporated, and so has a year of compounding you'll never get back. Automation removes that decision point entirely. The money moves before it ever feels like yours to debate. Think about the difference between someone who has to actively choose to save every single paycheck versus someone for whom saving simply happens. The same way their electric bill gets paid. One person is relying on willpower 26 times a year. The other person built the system once, and now willpower is irrelevant. And willpower, as it turns out, is a wildly unreliable resource to build a 30-year plan around. This is why people who seem boringly consistent with their money usually aren't smarter or more disciplined than everyone else. They just front-loaded one decision and let the system run. That's Rule 1. Set it and get out of its way. Rule 2 follows naturally from this, and it's this: keep your investments boringly simple. I mean, genuinely, almost uncomfortably simple. A handful of broad, low-cost index funds, not 15 individual stocks you're tracking, not a portfolio that requires a spreadsheet to explain to your spouse. Here's the part that surprises people. Complexity feels like control, but it usually isn't. Every additional holding is another thing that can spook you during a downturn, another decision point where you might sell at exactly the wrong moment. Financial research has shown repeatedly that most professionally managed funds fail to beat a simple broad index over long periods. So if the professionals with research teams can't reliably outperform simplicity, what exactly are you optimizing for with your 12-fund portfolio? Simplicity isn't the beginner version of investing. It's the version that survives contact with real human emotion during a real market crash, which, eventually, you will experience. Rule 3 is the one people get backwards, and I promised we'd get to it. Most people think financial stability means everything growing, all the time, as aggressively as possible. So Rule 3, separate your now money from your later money. Not metaphorically, practically. Keep 1 to 2 years of living expenses somewhere boring and stable. A high-yield savings account, something that isn't watching the stock market with you every morning. Let everything beyond that sit in your long-term investments and genuinely forget about it. Here's why this single separation does so much psychological work. When all your money lives in one pile, every market dip feels personal. A 15% drop isn't abstract anymore. It's your grocery budget, your car payment, your peace of mind, all wobbling together. That's when people make their worst decisions. They sell at the bottom because the fear becomes about survival, not strategy. But when your near-term needs are already covered, sitting calmly in cash, a market drop becomes background noise instead of a 5-alarm fire. Your long-term money can behave like long-term money because you genuinely don't need to touch it for years. There's a couple I think about often, both retired, who had nearly everything in one account when markets fell sharply. They didn't just lose money on paper, they lost sleep, lost the ability to enjoy their mornings, and eventually moved a big chunk to cash near the bottom, locking in losses they never recovered from. They had enough. They always had enough. Their money just wasn't organized in a way that felt like enough. That's the gap rule 3 closes. And this is where these 3 rules stop being separate ideas and start being one system. Automation removes the decision fatigue. Simplicity removes the temptation to tinker. And the now versus later split removes the panic that makes people abandon both of the first 2 rules at the worst possible moment. They're not 3 unrelated tips. They're 3 layers of the same protection, each one guarding against a different way people sabotage their own stability. Take anyone away, and the structure gets shakier. Automate without simplifying, and you're consistently feeding a portfolio you don't trust. Simplify without separating your cash, and you'll still panic sell your simple index fund during a crash because your rent money was tangled up in it. Put all 3 together though, and something interesting happens. Financial stability stops feeling like a performance you have to maintain and starts feeling like a system you built once and trust. That's really the quiet secret here. Stability was never about finding the cleverest strategy. It was about removing the moments where you're tempted to abandon a good one. The people who end up comfortable decades from now, the ones who aren't lying awake doing mental math at 2 a.m., they're not the ones who picked the best stocks. They're the ones who built something simple enough to survive their own worst days. So if you remember nothing else from this video, remember this. Automate it. Simplify it. Separate it. 3 rules, almost embarrassingly minimal, and yet they quietly outperform most of the complicated strategies people spend years chasing. The goal was never to build something impressive. It was to build something that holds up, even on the days the market doesn't, even on the days you don't feel like making a single smart decision. And maybe that's the real definition of financial stability, a system good enough that it doesn't need you to be perfect, just consistent. If you're not sure where to start, pick 1 rule this week. Just 1. Set up that automatic transfer. Check your fund count. Open that separate savings account. You don't need all 3 by Friday. You just need to start moving. If this helped you think about your own setup differently, hit that like button, drop a comment letting me know which rule you're starting with, and subscribe for more of this. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.